Hey everyone, thank you for being here on the Pink Cloud 9 video podcast and show. Today I have, of course, a very special guest, the one, the only CF Micky. CF stands for Cultivating Freedom. CF Micky, as I will call her, and that you can call her as well, was in a 33-year narcissistic marriage, and she would like to speak about some of the signs that were there, but are good to keep an eye out today for other people. This is how she helps people. She's also an author. She'll be talking about her book. So, CF Micky, thank you for being here. Please share with us what it was like to be married for 33 years to a narcissist.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Um, to be honest with you, I didn't have a label for his condition until our 28th year of marriage. All I knew was within our first year of marriage, there was something wrong with him. Paranoia was a huge factor in our relationship. And I didn't realize how I was being groomed all over time. I just felt that I was frustrated. I wasn't being heard. I suppressed my feelings, walking on eggshells until finally it got to a point where all the kids were gone from home and I just couldn't live like that anymore. My workload was increasing on the farm and it was never enough. My girls were pulling me aside. My one had pulled me in. At this point, I was in my own bedroom, and she pulled me into the bedroom and she said, "If you don't get out of this house, you're going to be in a nursing home before you know it." I was so mentally low. And my kids would often say, "Mom, you don't laugh anymore."
Hmm.
The stress level was just unbearable. I got to a point where I couldn't live like that anymore.
Understandable. It's nice that you were warned by the people that were knew you for so long and that were in the same household. Do you feel that they too were affected by this narcissistic father?
Well, like that's an interesting question because I always felt that I was doing my best to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
But once I left, I had a cousin sit that they stopped coming to the farm and visiting us. And she said to me, she said, one of the key things that she noticed was we were all having supper together, and then something funny was said, and the kids all looked at their dad to see if they could laugh or not.
Mm,
And she said, that's when I realized there's something heavy going on in that house.
right. Okay, that's interesting. So tell us some more red flags that you would look out for now and how you help people, navigate through something like this.
I guess dominating and the need to be seen or the grandiose part of it. Narcissists are very insecure people and they tend to pick strong people. And then they will slowly erode the confidence and everything away from their partner to dominate over them. And when you kind of notice this person that's got to be in the spotlight or um, uh, wrecking all the family celebrations, the birthdays, the Christmas, you walk into the room and you can feel tension.
Mhm.
Like I would walk into the house after being gone for a day and I could feel that something went down. And I would ask him, oh, no, nothing, nothing. No, it's all good. And then down the road, you find out that he threatened to shoot your son and put him 10 feet under where he belongs. And then I confronted him about this, and he started laughing. Oh, Katie, you don't think I'd be doing that? And I looked at him and I said, the words came out of your mouth. So what is going through your head? Well, then he would start to cry. So it was, our life was total chaos around here. It got to a point where I couldn't live like that. And I started standing up for myself. And that's when I guess the real stuff started happening around here.
Okay, so gaslighting, manipulation,
Control. We would have a family supper, would all be sitting at the table, and then just out of the blue, he would look at me and he'd say, you should go bath with the dog in the trough outside. All the kids are here with their mates and they're kind of looking, and my son questioned his father on that statement, and then I just piped up and said, oh, your dad's just being an ass. And then after I got thinking about it, how many times have I come and covered for him? Like I was always covering for him, enabling his behavior instead of getting his behavior called out. And once you start calling out their behavior, expect hell, because I couldn't believe what a cruel man he could be until I was in that discard phase.
Right. And so when you were first married, you said you started noticing things around like the first year of the paranoia and all of the other stuff that followed. So how long did it take you to realize, this isn't normal? And when did you start doing the discarding?
Well, the discarding phase actually didn't start happening until the kids left. We had a period throughout our marriage that we ended up at the marriage counselor. I was really low. At that point, I didn't know if I should be leaving or not. But I knew if I left, it would be hell for me and the kids. There was a time down at the barn when the kids were quite little, and my job was looking after the chopper for the grain for the pigs, and he ran back to the shop, and I wasn't supposed to shut it off. Well, he took too long down at the shop, and the feed was overflowing into other pen, and I had no choice but to shut it off. And he came back, and I'm standing in the barnyard holding on to the two young children's hands, and he went into a rage and just lost it on me. And I was so scared, I was just frozen stiff. And later that night, he said to me, why didn't you just take the kids and go back to the house when I started acting like that? And I said, I couldn't move even if I wanted to. I said, for the first time ever, I knew what scared stiff really meant. So I know if I left, it would almost be worse. So in my mind, I had to pit in and make it work and do the best job I could for the kids until they were gone.
Right, because you almost feel like maybe you were in a Stockholm syndrome kind of situation where you're kind of like, you're just trying to appease your captor versus fighting it back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I knew what was waiting for me. And, even just before we left, his sister phoned me up and asked us to go on a holiday with her. And I kept saying, don't ask me these questions. because he'll automatically think that I'm planning something or I'm conniving. I said, whatever he decides, I will do, you know, and that's how I was living. And until I just, we've had a few physical altercations here in the house, and that was it. I had to start detaching to leave.
Correct. Yes. So what does life look like now? And how long has it been since you were able to free yourself?
Well, okay. Uh, I was married for 33 years. I've been away from him for 6+ years in the court system. We're just about finalized. The court system has been very grueling. I've been going to the counselor, and right from even before this started happening, because I was trying to put the pieces together with him.
Hmm.
Even though he refused to go to the counselor, I needed to go because I needed to figure out what was going on in my home.
Right.
And she taught me techniques to handle stress and how to handle stress, because I didn't want to seem weak in the court system. I didn't want to seem break down and cry. I had to be strong, and I had to portray that. So we're so close to getting done now. But even before I did leave, we talked about splitting up, and he would say, why would you hire a lawyer unless you want more than you deserve? Or he would say, I want you to leave, just leave, think of it as an adventure. So I knew I had no choice but to hire a lawyer. I had the papers filled out in January of 2019, and I waited until March to file them because I was waiting for some sign that I didn't have to go down this path. And each year it got worse.
Yeah, I can only imagine how terrifying those times must have been.
But I one thing that I am grateful for is in our years together, I knew him. I knew him inside and out. I knew how he would react. I knew how he would act. And when it came to divorcing, I knew the games that he was going to play. So a lot of it, I had to sit back and let him do his thing and then catch him. And I documented everything. So for that, I am grateful. I went no contact, no just email or text. And that was probably the best thing I ever did for myself, was going no contact.
Yes, it's good for your protection, of course. So do your children, your grown children, have a relationship with him now?
Two of my children do, one doesn't. Um, there's a lot of games being played right now, and I cannot get drawn in to that. Like, my kids are very well aware of their dad and his behaviors. Before I left, I went to all three of them individually, and I had support from all three of them. So they are very well aware. It's just right now, uh, I know with one of the children, he said, you better figure it out between your mom and me because you're losing money every day. So it's the whole inheritance and buying you and all of that sort of thing. And they're adults, they're growing adults, and they're going to have to learn.
Right, using money as a manipulator
Yeah.
tool. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they use
Yeah.
that,
So
or, I noticed he's been coming back and, well, saying to our one child, I wouldn't have done this if I knew it upset your mom, or I wouldn't have done that if I knew it upset your mom. He knew exactly what he was doing. Because he would look at you and smirk and smile. He knew what he was doing. He just figured he was entitled. I was a possession. And that's one thing. When I first went to the counselor, I'm telling her what's going on. And she said to me, she said, it sounds like you're more of a possession than a wife. And I've thought long and hard about that. And I thought, how many times did I say to him, you're living in the wrong house? I'm your wife, not your child. And he married he married me. I believe he looked at it as a contractual obligation. It wasn't unconditional love that he loved me. He married me to fulfill his dreams, to work for him and get what he wanted. And then he's asking me to leave and think of it as an adventure.
Right. So I'm wondering, does he know he's a narcissist? How's he doing with all that now?
Well, I don't think he knows he's a narcissist. That's one thing you never ever tell a narcissist, that they're a narcissist. And we don't have any contact. So to my knowledge, he doesn't know about the book. And my kids are very respectful of my privacy.
That is really good about your adult kids being so responsible and caring for you and loving towards you and understanding for what you went through.
Yeah, it's I think the book was probably a little bit challenging for them, as it's one way to live your life, but it's another thing to have your life dissected and on paper. And I wanted to give them the privacy and the space and the time to deal with that. But on the other hand, you have to get out and you got to face everything head on if you want to deal with it and move forward in your life. And I find with my mission on raising awareness of narcissism, that is a real plus and a bonus in my healing process. Because face it, it was my 28th year of marriage before I actually had a name for what he had. And had I known what he had, I would have dealt with things a lot differently in my life.
Yes, exactly. Your website is up on the screen, and I love that. It's a good website, and towards the end, there are free resources for people that want to look into what that you offer, like signs of a narcissist, healing from abuse, and freedom checklist. So these are really great to look into. CK Micky's website is in the description and in the comments. They're hyperlinked. See, here are some testimonials of people that you have helped. And this is the cover of the book.
In that book, of my memoirs, I didn't want it to be a whiny and complainy book. I want it to be an educational piece. So as I went through my memoirs, I pointed out red flags and examples of red flags that he was doing throughout the book, and examples of the different phases that I went through with my marriage. So, like this book, if you're wondering where you're at or what's going on in your house, this book is fantastic for that, because it'll itemize and it'll show you examples, along with, at the end of the book, all, I call them cheat sheets, but all the extras to help you sift through. Hiring a lawyer, hiring a counselor. Don't just take the first one that comes along. they'll give you time, and you can sit in there and see if you mesh, see if they're the right fit for you.
Yes, there's a lot more resources today than there were even just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, obviously. A lot more resources as far as looking out for the signs and having the, well, some people have the diagnosis and some people are just walking around um, that, you know, are affecting other people, but they don't even know that they're doing so, or they're doing it and they don't care that they're doing it. Like,
Yeah.
so my question for you, my last question, and then I'll tell you something about myself and why I'm asking these questions, is what were his parents or his family, or if he had siblings, or what was his upbringing like, and why do you think he became this way? I mean, do you think he was born that way, or do you think he learned those narcissistic traits? Like, what is your thought on that?
My thought is it's how he was raised. And I know they say with narcissism, it might be up to 50% genetics and 50% environment. I believe it was how he was raised. His dad passed on, and I never ever knew his dad. I knew his mom. I knew the games that she would play, the triangulation, the lying, the manipulation. She would do all that. But then once I left, I had different people in the community coming up and talking about his dad. So, my opinion, I honestly believe he probably got it from both sides, and it was how he was raised.
Right. They say that narcissism is like a personality disorder versus, or like a personality symptom or symptoms of a personality issue versus it being like um, physical or mental. But then the personality can also mesh into the emotional. So it's all very complicated. But the reason I'm
Yes.
asking you these questions and why this topic is so important, and so grateful that you're on today talking about this, because I have narcissistic tendencies myself, and it was a way that I was raised, and so for some reason I have been able to see how I was raised, and also how I've treated people, and how I don't have worked hard to not be that way for a long time now. It is difficult because, and I'm not, I mean, I do this because I want people to be aware of the narcissistic red flags of people. Because, like I told you before we got on, there's people that were raised like this, but there's also husbands and wives that are also narcissists, and then there's all of these victims, and it's terrible. It's a terrible epidemic, right?
Yes.
And then some of them, it's worse when it's like um combined with other mental health disorders, or addictions, whether it's sex addiction or drugs, alcohol, who knows, right? It just, everything gets just like it can get worse and worse and worse. So it's important to um, watch out for all of these signs, like, you know, um, and it's hard to, right? Because narcissists or manipulators or people that know how to deceive people are able to mask their lies and be charismatic and say what everybody wants to hear, and then trap people. All of these things, right? These things happen all the time. It's terrible. It's terrible. So, like, I talk about this stuff because um, I don't think it's correct. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's right. I don't, obviously it's terrible. It's horrible for humanity now, in the past, in the future. It's terrible, right? Um, so I mean, I just, but I for one, for some reason, was able to be like, wait a minute, I have caused a lot of harm, and like, why am I causing so much harm, and all of this stuff. So, like, I was able to kind of like I don't know, figure some things out. But I do know that it's a defense mechanism as well. Like, for me, it was a defense mechanism because it was a way to protect myself when I was younger. It was a way to protect myself from
Yeah.
being the one that was going to get hurt, right? Or becoming a bully instead of being bullied, for example, right? So then as I got older, it just got bigger, it became a bigger monster. And, but then at some point I was like, this isn't really what I want to continue on with my life. And I was like, well, let me see what I can do to not be this continuous monster. So anyway, it's obviously a very complicated topic, or whatever, and it, but anyway, so I just wanted to say that, and why I'm so grateful that you're here to talk about this, actually.
Well, I have to say, it is like layers of an onion where you're peeling back, because I believe that every case is different. And the ability that you have to self reflect is actually huge, and that's a good ability. Whereas my ex, the more I've learned, I believed he was a dark tetrad. He was absolutely cruel, unbelievable, even to his grandchildren. Very felt threatened. That once they came along, he wasn't the center of attention. These little ones were. It was very disheartening to see a grandpa act like that.
That's interesting that you would say that, because that sounds like, kind of sounds like he enjoyed the cruelty he was giving to others.
Well, you would catch him
That
smirking or smiling. Like,
right.
even when we're in binding trial and we're in this boardroom with the lawyers and the judge sitting at a table going through everything, he's smirking. He's sitting back smirking and smiling. And both my lawyers caught it, and I caught it. So, I mean, if we're catching it, you can bet the judge saw. He was enjoying the drama, the chaos, the, like, it's, towards the end of our relationship, I couldn't even talk to him about anything. Well, I never could really talk to him. I had to listen, and he talked. And I just refused telling him anything about my family, because if they were going through a hardship, I would catch him smiling and smirking. And, I'll tell you, it was easy to detach because I lost all respect, admiration. Like, I was just disgusted with this man when I left.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that it helps to lose that respect, when you see the mask fall off and then you realize who that person really is, right? It's easier to detach. And so
Yes.
tell us about your life now.
Oh, actually, like I said, I just had to sit back and wait till he played his games and what he did. And I would come out to the farm and work when he wasn't here. The first time we were in court, the judge looked at me and then looked at my lawyer and said, I highly recommend that your client get camera surveillance on the farm. And the farm and the yard, it was both accessed for Brent and I. So that was a real bonus. So I could watch the cameras and know when he was gone and when he was home. And that's when I would come out and spend time on the farm and do the things. And I was fortunate because there was 3 days in a row he was here kind of during the night, and there was oil left on the shop floor and stuff. And I grabbed the ladder and I went and started looking in the windows of the house, and he's taking down light fixtures, like he's starting to strip the house down. And then he didn't come back to the farm. Well, that was April 26th. And then we started sending letters to his lawyer asking what's going on, and nothing was ever responded to. And finally, at the end of June, my lawyer said, pack your bags, you're moving to the farm. And he said, they'll try and take us to court, but we got him. And I started moving to the farm the next day, and I've been on the farm ever since. And my son and I have been farming the land since 2020. So it was my job to look after the auction sale last summer and have an auction sale on the farm. So things are moving along. Very happy. I'm on the farm. My grandkids are here. They have their chickens and turkeys. I couldn't have asked for anything more. I love my life.
That's really good to hear about. Being happy now, now in this season of your life, after everything that I can only imagine you went through. Tell us about the people that you have worked with and how you help, women get through this or find resources, or how you help them through situations like this, because I know there are so many today that are in your situation that you were 10 and 20, 30 years ago.
Well, honestly, like, I'm trying to do as many podcasts to get the word out and educate, just educate, because this can happen to anybody. They portray one vision to you and they are totally opposite behind the doors. So education and I just want everybody, like, it's nice to figure it out and prepare instead of leave in a panic. So that's why, and that's exactly what I did. I bought a journal and charted in it every night, police officers' names, dates, times, everything that's happened. Some of it we used, some of it we didn't, but at least it's down, it's relevant, it's got a date and a time. So when it does come that you can leave, you do have a Bible for your lawyer. You're not just winging and trying to remember things in the air, because when you're in one of these relationships, your brain goes foggy. Sometimes you can't remember the simplest things.
Yeah, it's one of those self-protection coping mechanisms that the body goes through, the mind. It's
Yeah.
kind of like you were talking about being scared stiff, the shock of things. Like, a lot of people just don't even remember what they went through or what someone said, just because it's just easier to not put it in your head file.
Well, it's almost like it's your brain's way of protecting you. Protecting
Right.
you from the trauma.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love this because, a lot of the awareness has to do with helping, and the education and the resources are really important. What do you tell your, I don't know, your children, or what do your children say to you about, like, uh, well, it sounds like some of them are married, they have children because your grandma, that's what that sounds like. So, but as far as, like, what will for example, your children tell their children about their future mates in the future? Like, is this something that they want to talk to their children about in the future? Like, and it's not just about narcissistic red flags, it's about other types of um, emotional abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, that, like, is that something also that goes in hand with the book and what you speak of?
Well, yeah, like a lot of this and writing the book was to bring awareness and call out. Like, I want to stop the cycle. And by stopping the cycle, you're calling it out, you're labeling it, you're bringing attention to it. So with that, I have to say, my children, when it comes to their children, they're very good at examples and learning how not to tolerate abuse. You know, like I've got one of my children, they said they will never lie to their kids. Like if their kids want to know, they will tell them and they will teach them that you do not accept that behavior from anybody else. Like, you know, they let their dad treat them that way, but they'll never ever put up with that behavior from anybody. They're done.
That's good
And
to hear. That's really good to hear. That's something that they had to learn firsthand, and
yes.
so good.
In this book, She Thrives, I'm one of 22 authors. And my chapter in this book is the aftermath of narcissistic abuse. So once you finally break free, you're really realizing the damage that is done to you. And I was so focused on helping my husband that I didn't realize what it was doing to me. And so my chapter in that book goes through some of the issues that I've been working through to succeed and come back on top. And I think that's one area that people don't consider is the damage that it can do to you and the work that you have to do to get back.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Cultivating Freedom, Micky, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening on the Pink Cloud 9 video podcast and show. This has been a really very good topic. It's one of my favorites to speak about. So I'm glad that you were here to share your experience, Micky. Please check out her website, her book, and join in on the education and awareness of narcissistic abuse so that we can all be safe from it, or at least not make things worse on other people. Like for me, that's something that I try not to make worse for other people, right, at this phase in my life. And I just want to remind everybody, be kind, because this world needs more kindness. I mean, obviously, and be kind to people in person, online, but also be kind to yourself. And Micky is a great example of that. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day, everyone.